A young man named Shimizu Kento won a lot of money and decided to move in on an uninhabited island where he could stay away from the crowds. He suddenly comes across a scantily clad woman lying on the beach. He wonders if she is involved in any dangerous activity and notices she has pointy, long ears. He wakes her up, asking her if she is all right. Her voice sounds very weak as she requests some water. He hurriedly runs back to his place, takes out a water bottle from his bag, and brings it to her. He sees her drinking the water and asks her if she can understand his language. She says she does, and she thanks him. He asks what she is doing there, and she replies, saying she doesn't know where she is. He lets her know that she is on an uninhabited island in Japan, but she says this is the first time she has heard those words. He asks about her identity as he introduces himself as Shimizu Kento. She introduces herself as Elise, an elf. He asks her how she arrived there, but she says she doesn't remember anything after hitting the lowest floor of the dungeon and losing consciousness. And when she woke up, she found herself on the island. She roamed around the beach, but fainted after exhausting her energy. Kento finds the term dungeon confusing, but Elise explains to him that the dungeon is an underground place filled with monsters and magical stones. These monsters kill any people who enter the dungeon. She adds that she's one of the hunters, and her work is to kill these monsters and get magical stones they leave behind. Learning from Kento that there are no dungeons in Japan, she is disappointed. Kento says it's useless to stand on the beach and talk and invites her to his home. He asks if she's injured, but she assures him she isn't and can walk. Kento is quite smitten and can't stop looking at her. She catches him staring at her and asks if there's anything on her face. He says there isn't, and he is relieved that she is fine. He asks her to follow him while he guides her to his house. She is quite exhausted after walking through the jungle, as Kento points out that they have reached his house. He welcomes her to his place. The size of the house astounds her, and she says it's beautiful. Kento, who is happy that she loves it, asks her to give her genuine thoughts from now on. She agrees with this. Thinking she might be hungry and exhausted, he makes her something to eat. She grabs the bread and bites into it. She claims to have never eaten soft bread like this before, clearly loving it. He queries as to why she is carrying a bow but not arrows, and she answers that she uses magic to make her own arrows. He is curious, as magic is something he hasn't seen. Seeing him curious, she uses her magic to create an arrow. He asks her if she could teach him how to use magic. She agrees, as he has done so much for her. He is excited to be the first magic user, but realizing she is tired, he goes to prepare for her bath. She asks him why it took him a while to arrive as he leads her to the bathroom. He explains that he must manually heat the bath and obtain water from the well because his house is remote from the city. She says she'll help him the next day when he gets water. The large apartment he is living in alone impresses her. He displays for her the items she will need for her bath. She startles him by taking off her clothes. He requests that she take off her clothes after he leaves, which she does. She calls for him after seeing a bottle of shampoo in the bathtub, but not being able to open it. He gets inside the bathroom and is embarrassed to find her undressed. He hands her a towel to cover up as he opens the bottle for her. She completes her bath and gets out, thanking Kento. He leads her to the room she will be staying in and assures her that he will be in the next room. She is now alone in her room, grasping that she is in a different world now. She wakes up the next morning, as Kento informs her he will be going to get water after their breakfast. She accompanies him, and for the first time, she sees a water pump. He shows her how it works. Elise, excited to use it for the first time, tries to pump but falls, slipping on the water. He asks her if she is okay and to take a shower first. He was going to the mainland, asking her to stay back and look after the house. He leaves on his personal cruise, leaving the house under her care and making a to-do list, starting with buying her clothes first. Meanwhile, back at Kento's place, she roams around, going through the household items and rooms, wondering what he is doing, as he's in a shopping mall sitting embarrassed, and tells himself never to buy ladies' undergarments ever again. He returns home with a lot of shopping bags. She is stunned that he brought her so many clothes. While picking up one of them, she wonders why they are so skimpy. She sees another bag and is about to open it, but Kento, acting aggressively while trying to stop her from looking into it, falls on her. He says it has undergarments, and she must look at them after he leaves. He also brought her books, so she could learn to read, and later he would teach her more on the tablet. She is grateful he is doing so much for her, but he says she will be teaching him magic, so it's on an equal footing. Becoming the first magic user in the world is a blessing for him, and he wouldn't mind if she stayed with him forever. He leaves so that she can try on her new clothes. Later, she is delighted to learn so many new things from the book, especially about science. Some moments later, she is astounded by the history book too. He remarks that she is acting like a child. She says she hasn't been outside her own world, and learning new things about this world is making her feel like a child again. He says that she hasn't been outside the island either, and he promises to take her next time he goes to the mainland. He goes on to do his garden chores like looking for bugs on his plants. When she asks him how he is having so much fun doing that, he says he has liked growing plants since he was a kid. She asks him if he could show her what he is doing, as she would like to learn about agriculture while having fun. He explains to her that the plant needs to be treated every day until it grows, so she selects one of the plants, says she will take care of it. He makes her promise that she can't back out. She starts teaching him magic by saying to lift his arm to release supernatural powers, or as she calls it, mana. She starts searching for invisible vessels that release mana and asks him to stand still. She explains to him that he indeed has an invisible vessel and therefore can conjure magic. She explains that as long as he has the mana, he can use it to increase his physical abilities, and she displays her strength by leaping dramatically in front of him. She says that if he focuses on his legs or arms, he could do that too. She asks him to relax and feel the flow of mana. He follows her instructions and tries to take a jump. Though he makes a significant jump, he falls to the ground. She says he will get better with time, and he did better as a first-timer. She says he will have enough training to master his magic properly. She also points out that the island is surrounded by a lot of supernatural energy, which means there must be a dungeon nearby. Scared, Kento asks if the dungeon means there will be monsters too. Eliza assures him they won't come out of the dungeon. She asks him to keep practicing until she takes a look around the island. She is wandering on the island as she senses a strong mana around her at a place. She finally finds a cave's opening. She enters the cave cautiously to find a massive dungeon inside. Eliza is concerned about the monsters it has and uses her magic to shut the doors of the cave, preventing them from coming out. Meanwhile, Kento is still training. Eliza comes back to him, asking how he is doing. Giving a sly wink, he says he is getting better now. He asks her if she has found what she was looking for. She says she found a dungeon not too far away and suggests making a plan to explore it. She doesn't know how a dungeon in this world works and advises him to stay away from the cave. He says, being the owner of the island, he is concerned, but she says he will accompany her once he masters his magic. She tells him that she has sealed the gate of the dungeon for now and needs some tools that will help them in their exploration. He asks her to join him in buying tools, as he will be staying on the mainland for the night. She is worried that her ears might stand out in the crowd, but he has already bought her a hat to hide her pointy ears. She is overjoyed with her new clothes and the hat, and thanked him. He asks her if she could help him with learning magic, and she agrees, saying she will need to study about this new world more. Eliza is excited about her journey to the mainland and sees new outfits on her tab. She is enjoying the fact she could go through them on the tab so easily, and starts imagining herself in those outfits. She takes out one of the undergarments Kento brought her, and realizes she has to put it beneath her clothes, but doesn't know how to put it on and leaves it, saying she will ask Kento about it. She puts on a t-shirt and meets Kento in the hallway. He woke up early as usual and is having his breakfast. She asks him why he wakes up so early every day. So he says that as there aren't many people on the island, so he can't rely on anyone. She loves her breakfast. He explains that the vegetables growing back in the house are food too, and he would teach her how to cook. He laid out his plan for the day, that he would keep the cruise for maintenance, and he would take her for some sightseeing on the mainland. She says she is excited about her trip, but Kento requests for her to help him draw out some water first, as he can't use magic. She gets up and Kento notices she isn't wearing her undergarments and asks her why she isn't wearing them. She says she can't get in and maybe he could help her, and starts taking out her t-shirt in front of him. He closes his eyes, feeling uneasy, asks her not to undress in front of him and go back to her room and wait. He shows her on the tab how to wear it, and she successfully wears it. She starts helping him with collecting water and asks why he needs to pump water every day. He goes on to explain how he needs to store water for his household purposes, and that the water comes from the tank behind their house. He continues to say that his house runs on energy sources, such as solar panels for electricity and wind turbines for batteries to heat up the water for showers and cooking. Back at his place, she is confused over what to wear. He asks if she is ready, and she selects a costume. She arrives outside the house, wearing a dress and a jacket above it, looking stunning as Kento is captivated, acknowledges to himself that she does look like a foreign beauty after wearing the hat. He takes her on his cruise, where she, for the first time, encounters such a luxurious ship, and requests Kento to look inside the ship's interior. She goes through every room, and then sits on a bed, thinking that the facilities inside the ship are pretty good compared to her world. He asks her if she has traveled on the sea before. She replies that in her world, the seas were ruled by the beasts, so she couldn't even if she wanted to. Even such technology doesn't exist to build a ship like this in her world. Kento says after leaving the cruise, they will travel by car. Learning this, Elise was even more excited because she hadn't ridden a car before. When their cruise reaches the mainland's beach, she sees the beach for the first time and says she is jealous of others who can enjoy the ocean and beach here, unlike in her own world. Kento hires a car, and they hop into it. Elise wishes to take off her hat and sees that, other than her ears and the differences in culture and thought process, she looks much like the other individuals as she stares out the window. Kento takes her to a castle, where she admires the architecture. But he says this isn't a heritage site, but was built recently. Elise says she isn't very knowledgeable about architecture, but seeing a castle so big is a sight to behold. Her world's technology is still struggling and doesn't have any architecture like this one. She thinks that if more elves come to this world, they will be stunned too. A sudden gust of wind blows away Elise's hat. In a hurry, Elise grabs the hat and puts it back on. Kento asks if she is okay, and she says she is, but wonders whether anyone noticed her ears or not. They head back to a hotel, where he feels relieved that no one saw her ears and made a scene. She says she wasn't careful enough and would be next time. She adds that she wanted to go shopping for the tools, but they can do that the next day, as they are in no rush. She is satisfied with her day spent, and Kento is glad to hear that. Kento goes to his room, letting her know to knock him if she needs anything. Elise, meanwhile, hits the shower. She is very relaxed, comes out and falls straight on the bed snoring. The next morning, they go shopping again. She looks at a product with purine written on it, asking what it means. Kento explains that this shop keeps Monte Blanc things. She starts shopping for luxurious items which she hasn't seen before. She contemplates if she has shopped excessively. Kento decides to get them dessert, and then takes her to the departmental store to buy tools. At the store, she looks at all kinds of tools and asks Kento what kind of store it is. He replies that this store sells a lot of useful tools for daily use. She picks up a hatchet asking if they have a bigger one than that. Kento says if they can't find one, they will go to some other departmental store. But she says not to worry as she will get this hatchet. Then she picks up an axe too, saying that the hatchet might be small, but they need to get bigger weapons to have a wide reach. She looks around and says that this isn't a weapons store at all. She suddenly loses balance on her heels, but Kento catches her before she falls. She thanks him, but he feels uneasy again. He shows Elise that he picked up some protective gear such as helmets and gloves to be on the safer side. He also gets them canned foods, saying anything is good as long as it's suitable to eat. He thinks that as long as he has something to eat, the next thing he needs is to master his magic. They buy the tools and leave for their cruise. He asks her to stay behind while he returns the car. She says she is tired and stays back. Once he comes back, he sees her tired, sleeping. He takes the cruise back to his island. Elise is having trouble putting on her dress and knocks on Kento's door, asking for his help. He is embarrassed by her half-naked attire and knots the dress on her back, thinking that she is getting used to not trying to be completely naked in front of him. She is ready in her elf attire now, as she doesn't want her new clothes to be dirty. She asks Kento if she needs to wear an undergarment below her dress, but he says it's fine. She puts on a cloak above it to cover herself. She takes Kento back to the cave, where she explains that she sealed the door. She also brought in a first aid kit for safety. She takes out one of her recovery potions in case they are seriously wounded. She warns him not to lower his guard, as she doesn't have much of the potion and can't make it. But she would protect him at any cost. He gets inside the cave, getting an eerie feeling towards it. She says the cave is filled with mana, and she hasn't seen any cave lit up inside. She deduces that the cave lights are around to guide the way, so it's an artificial dungeon, and asks him to stay by her side and not to talk until and unless it's important. They started to walk inside the cave. Kento says they have been deep inside and should have confronted a monster by now. As soon as he says that, a doll-type figure appears in front of them. She says the beast in front of them is a weak one and gives Kento an opportunity to fight it. He is excited about tackling the beast and throws a rock at it. The beast, after getting hit by the rock, starts chasing Kento, to his horror. The beast makes a jump on him to attack. Elise shouts out his name to warn him as he, somehow, conjures up magic within a moment and blows away the beast's head. She is impressed by his magic, but warns him to prepare for more sudden attacks. The body of the beast vanishes in thin air like smoke and leaves behind a stone. Elise picks it up, says it's a magical stone that is left behind when a demon disappears. The rock doesn't have any value in his world though. Suddenly, they notice the same smoke appearing again. A frightened Kento looks at it, as she says that when a beast dies, they are often reborn from the same smoke. The same doll demon reappears again, this time with a different weapon. Elise raises her bow to take down the demon, hitting it straight on the head and breaking it. The demon evaporates as she picks up its weapon. She says to retreat back before they meet other demons. Unexpectedly, Kento falls on her chest, exhausted. He faintly says he can't see anything and falls on the ground. She picks him up and calls his name, but he doesn't respond. She takes him back to his place. The next morning, he wakes up, as she says his body was burning up because of being surrounded by so much mana. As he tries to wake up to make breakfast, she asks him to sleep as she would make something to eat, asking him to drink a lot of water. He thanks her, and she tells him she would do this much for a friend. She, back in the kitchen, wonders if she ever had a friend while opening canned food. She brings him peaches as he flirtatiously asks her to feed him. She jokingly asks if he is remembering his mother, which annoys him, and he asks her to leave behind the food. She checks on him later and asks him if he is feeling okay now. He says he can't sleep, and she steps in. She hesitantly asks him why he moved to a lonely island to live by himself. He says that he used to be a teacher before and didn't have much money. Later, he got into some trouble with one of his students. Luckily, He won a huge amount of money and decided to move to this island to escape. She says that it's strange that he didn't have anyone to support him, but quickly apologizes for her statement. He says it isn't strange, and he is glad to stay there because he ended up meeting her. He holds her hand and says he wants to focus on the present. She apologizes again as she stands up. A rock falls from her hand. Kento asks her what she plans on doing with the rock. She says she doesn't know yet. He says he could make something with it, and Elise suggests a hair clip would be great. Kento looks up on his tab to find shocking news, which he shows to Elise. Some artificial ruins have started appearing in Shinjuku. She wonders if there are more elves like her outside the island. A woman claiming herself to be a government official shows up at Kento's place. She explains that due to the resurgence of dungeon caves in Tokyo, the existence of this island came up too, and now the government wants Kento to hand it over to them. Kento, who is suspicious of them, says he won't leave the island for free. He also adds that the island doesn't have anything other than his house. But the agent says she knows it's useless and will pay for the island from her own fund, and it has nothing to do with the government. This makes Kento more doubtful. He says that if the island is worthless to her, why does she even bother to buy it? The agent gets enraged, yells at him to stop questioning, and says she knows the woman with him is an elf. She shows a photo of Elise without the hat on the mainland, saying that the photo has gone viral on the internet. She explains that she would have considered it a joke at first, but now with the recent news of dungeons showing up, she now realizes that elves exist too. The agent also says that while she was arriving at the island, she had sensed magic coming within the island too, confirming her doubts that there's a dungeon on the island too. She offers to buy Elise along with the island from Kento, which startles him. He says that Elise isn't an asset, and he would respect Elise's decision if she wants to leave. Elise says she doesn't want to leave. The government agent asks if they are refusing their offer. Kento replies that he does, which frustrates her. She calls him a fool and threatens that she will occupy the island by any other means. She leaves, asking Kento and Elise to rethink about their proposition. As they leave, he promises Elise he isn't going to give away the island. Elise goes back to his house to take a shower. As she gets out of her room, she realizes Kento is staring at Elise's photo that the officials gave him. She asks him why he is staring at it, and he clarifies that her hair looks good in it. She bends over him, asking if it's only her hair, but he says no, but she was looking beautiful too. He gifts her a hairpin he made out of the rock. She loves it and says he really did magic on the rock, but he says he did it via learning from the internet. She requests that he take her to the beach, postponing their magic training for the next day. They visit the beach, as Elise loves the view there. She suggests going swimming, but he asks if she even knows how to swim, as she has never been near the ocean before. He sees her going into the ocean, and not to drench her dress, says he has brought a swimsuit to go for a swim. She again starts to undress in front of him, but he stops her, gives her a curtain where she can change. She puts on the bikini and loves it. They start playing beach volleyball, and she goes on to explain that the underwater beasts in her world are unbeatable. He wonders if dungeons started showing up in his world, those monsters might show up too. She agrees, saying that if there is enough mana, they might show up. But he says that whatever happens, they will both defend the island together. For some reason, she becomes upset, and they leave the beach. Back at his place, she is still upset and starts avoiding him. He is curious about her sudden change in behavior. Suddenly, he hears a knock at his door. The government officials are back, asking him if he has changed his decision. But he still says his answer remains the same. She says he isn't being reasonable, and if something bad were to happen to him while monster hunting, then she won't be able to help him. Meanwhile, Elise sneaks back at her with her bow, and he says if he is being threatened, his friend already has her attention. He goes on to say that his elf friend has gathered enough mana, and the fight will be on equal footing now. The government agent asks if she is being threatened, as she is recording the conversation secretly. He says he is just warning her. Her secretary asks her to leave, and she asks Elise if her magic will even hurt her, leading to an argument with her. Kento asks her to lay down her bow and again asks them to leave. She says the island will be hers, frustrating Elise that she isn't stepping down, and uses her power on her to throw her off. This makes the agent furious and angry, leaving them. She says they wouldn't get away with this while having the conversation recorded. A woman gets into her combat suit as she says she has the confirmation to kill the male on the island. But they need to capture the female elf alive. She lands on the island, along with some gunned mercenaries, where her superior, the agent, tells her that she will clean up after she ends her task and not to leave any traces. Her secretary is concerned, saying that she is stretching it too far, but her boss is adamant that they have decided their fate and would make them pay for rejecting her offer. The secretary realizes she isn't in the mood to negotiate and wonders what might happen next. Meanwhile, Kento and Elise learn about the mercenaries' arrival. Elise says that only threatening her didn't work, and they need to brush them off. She asks if he really realizes that they are coming to kill them, and anything besides crushing them down won't end it. He asks how she plans to do it, and she says she won't let them go back alive, surprising Kento. He asks her again if she is really sure she will kill them, but she is adamant and won't force Kento to take sides with her. Her first plan is to draw the mercenaries towards the dungeon. When one of them spots her, they follow her near the dungeon and start shooting rapidly. He is asked to stop by his superior. They see Kento and Elise and start shooting at him, but they use their magic to make a jump, dodging their bullets. The lady in command is surprised by him using magic as Elise sneaks behind her. She turns around to shoot her, but Elise takes away her gun. They engage in a fight when suddenly Elise's magic stops working. The female soldier says she sealed her magic, and Elise is grabbed by some mercenaries. The female says that she isn't going to kill her, but instead going to make her watch Kento die. As she orders his execution, Elise kicks her legs and takes her down, telling Kento that they will never stop coming after them. Elise takes down the mercenaries one by one, finally coming to their boss. Before killing her, Elise asks for some information about her superior, which she denies. Elise is about to kill her, but the lady takes out one of her knives and slashes it around Elise. Surprisingly, Kento approaches stealthily behind her, holding the female by her neck, and snaps it, killing her. He repents, saying that he thought he couldn't kill her, but saving the island is his responsibility, and he can't put that on Elise. She thanks him and says she unfortunately made him a killer, and she says she was putting the other soldiers to sleep or defenseless, but didn't kill them. He instead went further and killed one of them. He sees something rising behind her and comes running towards her as he yells her name. Kento saves Elise from a demon attack. She takes out her bow and shoots it, to find out if there are more of them. She calls them goblins. She says she couldn't find them when she surveyed the cave. That means another dungeon might have shown up on the mainland. The golems attack as Kento defends himself, wondering if this is a part of those official schemes. Elise tells her not to worry much as golems aren't difficult to tackle. She kills the remaining golems with the arrows, and they disappear in the smoke. He says they got rid of those goblins pretty fast, which he calls a disappointing matter. But she notices one of those goblins didn't disappear. The female officer's secretary learns of the events on the island and says she will tie up the loose ends. Her superior comes in looking for her and asks her what happened on the island. She replies that she is leaving for the island to check for some details. Back on the island, Kento and Elise learn that the previous official is now replaced by a new committee, and they will be showing up. Soon, the secretary along with a new government official shows up at his place. The secretary is now more friendly than her superior, introduces herself as Umezu and apologizes for the events that happened. Her superior then introduces herself as Nanami. He asks if they have come regarding handing over the island to them, to which Nanami says no. but they just want access to the location, as the government is now tackling the resurgence of dungeons, and his island has one of them. She goes on to apologize for her predecessor's misconduct, and says the government is looking after her case now. He puts forward a request that if he gives them access to the island, in return he would want them to grant Eliza Japanese citizenship. She says that they have already taken an elf from Shinjuku's dungeon under their custody under their protection, which surprises Eliza. She stands up asking if there are actually people like her who showed up. Nanami clarifies her doubts that there are, and she discreetly takes them under their custody and asks Eliza if she would like to meet them. Eliza is confused whether to agree or not, but agrees. Nanami says then making her a Japanese citizen would be her first priority and looks towards Kento, asking his demands. She comes clean saying that the government would be establishing research facilities and wishes to manage the island jointly with him, so his monetary assets and treatment would be secure. But he worries that the island now will be crowded, to which she agrees, but says it's best for both of them and would minimize the impact. Eliza is still pondering over the fact that if she allies with their military forces, they will persuade her to do their job for their interests too. Nanami says that the government would work on dungeons similar to a business operation, making it a place for visitors and explorers too, and would make a contract on the confidentiality of the information, not going out of the facility and production of magic stones. She also says that they won't kill the monsters, but need to control them too. This makes Kento question their intention, asking why the government would breed the monsters. She asks why he would say that. He replies that before their arrival, they were attacked by goblins too. Every single one of them disappeared after dying except one. Eliza says that's only possible when they are crossbred with humans of this world. This information surprises Nanami, as she says she doesn't have any information about it. He says that this means that they don't have any knowledge about the dungeon, and if they agree on his terms, he will help them and also let them have the goblin's body. Nanami says she'll look into the matter and leaves. Once she is out, she yells frustratingly about how they could know about the goblins, and she can't negotiate with them, not knowing what they know. She blames her secretary for not letting her know and asks her to negotiate with them. Kento asks Eliza if she is happy she will get to meet her friends. She says she doesn't want to be disturbed by others, as she is enjoying her life with him on the island. Kento smiles. Two elves from the mainland look at the island, asking Nanami if that's the island where the much talked about elf lives. She says yes, and not to call her an elf, but Eliza. She asks both of them not to provoke Eliza by any means and have a peaceful chat. Kento greets them inside his house, as one of the elves Nanami brought recognizes Eliza. Eliza calls her by her name Mina. Nanami asks if they know each other. She says they belong to the same group in their world. The man elf says her choice of place to retire is very predictable, and she calls him Mr. Dwarf. Kento asks everyone to get inside and bring them coffee. Kento introduces himself as the owner of the island, as does Mina and Wilhelm, the dwarf. Mina says she met Wilhelm at the Hunters Guild, which Eliza has left. Eliza explains how she reached the lowest floor and found strong monsters and a small crystalline ball, and as soon as she touched it, she lost consciousness and found herself on the island. Mina says she, after knowing that Eliza was missing, went with another hunters group led by Wilhelm, also reaching the lowest floor of the dungeon, and saw the crystalline balls. They blinked and reached Tokyo somehow. Eliza says they plan to explore the dungeon, and Kento says, as they are allying with the government, he would like to know their expertise. Kento puts Mina in the potions department and Wilhelm in developing tools. Both Mina and Wilhelm are happy about their new jobs. Nanami says that both of them won't mind staying on the island. Mina says she was looking forward to staying with Eliza anyway. Kento shows them their rooms where they will stay until the facility is developed on the island. Nanami leaves saying she will send Mina and Wilhelm's belongings to the island. Kento and Eliza discuss among themselves that these two new members are their responsibility. and they need to show them around the island. They notice the places around the island are changing as the agency is cutting down the trees and cleaning them to make facilities. Elise says their life won't be the same with people all around. Kento says they will always have the memory they shared together on the island. She says she is looking forward to the change in order to learn more about this new world. Kento says that living on the island will be easier now, and they will have a great future. Elise leans forward towards Kento and is about to kiss him, but Mina interrupts them suddenly, letting them know the workers are done for the day. Mina and Kento leave their house, as Elise wonders about how close they were a moment ago. Kento says it's time for Japan to have its own dungeon hunters and leaves the security of the entry gate to Ayako and Ayako. Yamato Ayako and her brother Akemine say they will do what's necessary. Kento asks them to move to the dungeon along with Yumezu. As a cruise arrives at the island, one of the people on it looks at the photo of Elise on his phone. Some explorers arrive at the island on a boat. Kento greets them at the Golem dungeon and introduces himself. He asks everyone to follow him to take a tour of the island. One of the explorers named Tauji asks about an elf, asking Kento about her whereabouts, but he says he is not under any obligation to answer him. The explorer says he will just meet her once, but Kento rebuffs him, saying that if he is there to meet the elf, he can leave. The explorer gets angry and grabs him by his collar, demanding to meet the elf. Kento gently asks him to let him go, and one of his friends, Agatsuma, asks him to leave Kento. He apologizes on behalf of his friend's behavior and asks him to overlook the matter and show them the dungeon. Kento says it's not a problem as long as he understands what he said and warns them to stay quiet in the dungeon and takes them inside. But before getting started, he needs to sort out the matter about the security card and ask the others who are not on the list to meet Yumezu. Suddenly, Elise arrives excited to meet the visitors. The explorers are awestruck by looking at an actual elf. She realizes the situation, and she leaves, apologizing to Kento for interrupting him. He hurriedly asks everyone to not waste their time and to follow him. He shows the stones they gathered, asking Yumezu to confirm in their Tokyo department if this lot of stones is okay for their R&D department. Later, he comes back to his house tired. Elise asks him if he is tired, startling him. He says he didn't imagine the stress would be this much. Elise asks if he regrets the decision. He says he doesn't regret helping manage the dungeon, but is thinking about whether his decision is right. She says that when she left her hometown to become a hunter, she too had gone into this dilemma, but then she remembered what made her take the decision. She grabs his hand, enthusiastically telling him to go to the beach to get rid of all worries. He says it's evening, but she says it doesn't matter. They leave for the island as Mina from her window sees how they are having a good time at the beach. Back at the facility, Yumezu lets Kento know that all the explorers came back from the dungeon safely gathering magical stones as much as they can. But one of them is feeling sick, losing his balance while walking. She checked on him, but he made sure he was okay, and she didn't ask any further as their health-related issues weren't their concern. She further adds that another group of explorers has managed to reach the second floor of the underground dungeon. When Elise asks which group that is, she says it is a 3-man group headed by Tauji. Kento remembers him as the same guy with whom he had an argument, making him a little angry, which Elise notices. Elise asks Yumezu to let the other explorers be safe. Their meeting is over as they head back to his place. Back at his place, Elise asks Kento if he knew Tauji or anything happened between them. But he says there's nothing to worry about. She grabs his face and demands to look into her eyes and tell her the truth if anything is bothering him. He is about to say, but is interrupted by Yumezu, who lets him know that one of the members of the group on the second floor dungeon has gone missing and lost all contact with the island, shocking Kento. Yumezu says the team is separated and loses all contact with them. Kento gathers around the experienced hunters in search of the missing person. Wilhelm says he isn't interested in going, but Mina says this isn't the time to say that. Wilhelm clarifies that he and Mina aren't experts at combat. He is only good at making weapons. Elise asks Wilhelm to obey Kento's orders as being from another world. They don't have much to say. Wilhelm reluctantly agrees, asking why two humans are with them, including Taoji and Agatsuma. Agatsuma says it's his friend who has gone missing, so he can't sit. Besides, it is easier to find him if someone knows his face. His missing friend's name is Tomita, and he requests Kento to let them join him. Kento says it's dangerous for inexperienced explorers like them to go. Taoji mockingly asks him why he is going then. Kento lets him know that he has been inside the dungeon before and has been trained by Elise. Taoji says that Elise will hunt the monster, and all they need is to stay away from her way, and that they will, but Kento disagrees, thinking Taoji is just looking forward to an opportunity to meet Elise. He says if they stay behind, they will not have to worry about two more people. Taoji says it won't be easy for him to search the island with more people. But Kento says that being on the island, he has more knowledge of its geography, and for him, being honest, the outsiders are just trying to interfere in too much and becoming a hassle for him. Taoji loses his calm, raises his hand to slap Kento, but Elise comes in between them, telling him to stop. She stops them from fighting, saying that they are about to face monsters, and it's not time to argue over something like that. She says that she will let them join them if they don't find the missing person in 3 days. If they can't confirm the missing person's safety, she won't be able to guarantee their safety either. Taoji agrees, saying since it's her request, he will listen, annoying Kento. As the human hunters leave, Elise is relieved. But Kento says that he could have handled things peacefully if she hadn't jumped in. She says the guy seems to have a special interest in elves, so she helped by jumping in between and made him understand. She says she isn't a weak maiden who needs saving every time and not to worry about that matter. They need to focus on finding the missing explorer, but searching for the entire island would take time. So she divides the team into two. One team included him and Elise, and another with Ayako, Mina, and Wilhelm. She warns them not to stray too far and to make safety their first priority. The team goes to search for the missing explorer. She says the missing person wouldn't have wandered off far from the dungeon, but considering if he isn't looking for stones or goods, but just lost on an isolated island, he is suspicious. But she brushes it off, saying she is overthinking and should hurry. Kento comes across a rock and also finds footprints around it and decides to start following it. Elise brings out her bow and arrow for their safety. She says that the missing person can't go around the island and will be exhausted soon. Kento says at any rate, having little to no clue isn't helping them in their search. Elise says that if they don't find any more clues, they will regroup with Mina and the others. She, seeing Kento tired and exhausted, says they should take a break from walking, but he says he can keep going. She flicks her fingers on his head, saying not to hurry, and he promised her that he would listen to her in these situations. He wonders if his stamina has gone down after the desk work. She says, probably, and they haven't got a moment like that for a long time. Kento says she can blame it on his cowardly nature, but she reassures him, saying that he has been doing a lot. To lighten up the mood, he says she was looking at mackerels on the internet and had been waiting to try different dishes. She agrees, saying in this world she found so many interesting things and learned so many new things, and she can't stop herself from learning more. Recently, she heard of something called marketing. This stuns Kento, as he wonders that someone from another world does have a thirst for knowledge. She continues saying she knows that this world has a lot to offer, but thinking about spending her life on this island is something she is looking forward to each day. Hearing this uplifts Kento. Kento says that they have a lot of trouble, but with new challenges every day, he is excited about facing them every day. Also, this makes him realize that he has been missing out on his exercises lately. She says they have a great exercise on their hands now, which is dungeon exploration. She adds that he has been doing managerial work lately, and this is the perfect opportunity to brush up his training. He says he can't put much weight on it, but yells that she can't let the skills in him rust away, and once their manhunt is finished, they will go inside the dungeon, only 2 of them. Kento agrees, which pleases her. She says to get back into the search for the missing person, but he says that he doesn't have any idea where to start. She says maybe they are doing something wrong, and says maybe he doesn't exist. But Kento points out he filled out the form before the exploration. Again, she says he might have swum back to the mainland. But again, he says why he would do that, and doesn't let his friends know. She comes up with another theory that he might have turned into a monkey and swung off, he says. Only if he was cursed by someone. She chuckles. Says she is being stupid right now, and Kento makes a jump to look for any clue. He notices some dirt on the tree branches, wondering how it even reached there. She says that she heard the missing person was looking ill, and maybe he wasn't lost at all. She asks where the soil leads to, and he says to a nearby cottage. He says they are lucky he went somewhere that gets checked up often. She takes a jump and reaches near the cottage, followed by Kento. Near the cottage, she sensed something there. Kento says that something is a person, not a monster. But she says she senses something like a monster is around them. She asks Kento to strengthen up and move with her, as she will be leading, and he will be her backup. They sneakily move toward the shadowy figure, and see their homegrown vegetables lying on the ground half-eaten. She, enraged at looking at the nuisance he has caused, draws out their bow. Kento asks her to stop, but she angrily says that he wrecked their field and looks at him munching on their vegetables. She presumes something is weird about him, goes up and asks him what he is doing there. Tomita intensely looks at Elise as she senses something different in him. She asks him again if he had been eaten. He angrily looks at her and licks his hand to conjure fire and throws it at Elise. Kento shouts at Elise to get back, who evades the attack by jumping aside. Kento asks why he is attacking them. Elise says not to be fooled by his appearance, as it isn't Tomita anymore. Tomita attacks again as she says she will explain later and back her up now. They engage in a fierce battle. As Elise tries to knock down Tomita, he grabs her bow and throws her down. Tomita makes a jump above Elise, but in the meantime, Kento picks her up and moves her away. He asks if Tomita is a monster now, and she says yes and can transform into anything he has eaten alive. They in their world call it shapeshifter. She says shapeshifters have great learning ability and need to catch the monster before it flies away out of their reach. Tomita, in front of them, turns into an eagle and flies away. Elise says she will go after the monster and asks Kento to contact Mina and the others. Some moments later, Elise shows up back at his place, where she says she followed the monster, and it went inside the dungeon, so she has closed the entrance for now. Kento says they should come up with a plan at night, and she goes to take a shower first. After she comes out of the shower, Kento says he has given a brief summary of what has happened and asks her to give more information on those kinds of monsters. She is startled as she is in her towel, asking for a minute to change, which shocks Kento as she didn't used to be so cautious about that earlier. She puts on her clothes and thanks Kento for saving her back there, and he says he'll call Mina and others. They try to come up with a plan, as Kento says he needs to inform the Senator, Nanami, about the explorer's situation, which Yumezu says she has already done over the call. A plane arrives for Kento to take him to the mainland. 2 officials got out of the plane to accompany him to the mainland. After the recent events, Senator Nanami asked him for a business trip to Tokyo and for a detailed report and discussion, so he had decided to go to the mainland for the first time in a while. Elise asks if he can trust them, but he says he doesn't think he can. He asks the officials who they are, to which they reply they are his escorts sent by the senator's secretary, and if he has heard about them. He says he didn't, and they hand him over the phone where he gets a call from the secretary. She says that she forgot to mention the escorts, and if he needed something else, he could feel free to ask for it. The escorts ask him if he can trust them now. He says he didn't expect such generosity and introduces himself and Elise. The escorts introduce themselves as Tajiri and Suzuki. and say they are entrusted by the ministers of Nabaragu. They get in a private jet, where they are asked to relax. Tajiri says the senator has asked them to show Kento and Elise around and entertain them. Elise and Kento are both suspicious, as she wonders if they may have to deal with another problem. They land on the mainland and Elise is thrilled to have a trip to Tokyo. But she is still skeptical about the secretary's true intentions. They are given a jet, escorts, and they are generous. But Kento says he will be appreciative of it for now. She says he is being too soft nowadays and people will take advantage of it. But she is fine with that, saying she likes this attribute in him. She holds his hand and says she won't let it go. She caresses his face, but again they are interrupted by the escorts. They say they have arrived at their destination and take them to a tall hotel. They reach the floor, and the escorts say they will be waiting outside as Kento knocks on the door. He, along with Elise, gets inside the room. The senator says she is grateful for having them there. She continues saying that it's nice to have a conversation in a beautiful hotel, annoying Elise as she replies if she has called them to brag about it. The senator laughs it off, saying that she will do it some other day, and asks them to sit. She lets them know that they have announced the death of Tomita in public, and takes them there to discuss the dungeon's management structure. Elise demands for some time, so that they can catch the shape-shifting monster. But the senator is more worried about the information leak, and she can't risk it. Elise is infuriated, says she doesn't need to obey her. But the senator says she doesn't have the time or staff to handle it. Kento calms them down that they will think about it later and puts forward a proposal, asking for the magic harpy they are producing in Shinjuku Dungeon. Hearing about the magic harpy astonishes the senator, making her ask how he knows about that. Then she realizes he knew it from Yumi's, says what he is asking for is impossible and she'll try. Also, she asks if they could help them defeat these monsters. He says he will invite other members from the hunting party and have designated the floor where the shapeshifter was. The senator is relieved, says they are currently producing the healing potions, so dispatched hunters would be fine. She also asks them to stay back at the hotel for the night, and wants to have some private words with Elise. The senator asks if she could be the receiver of the tourists and hunting party from the cruise on the island from next time to bring in more investors, which Kento clearly understands is Taoji's motives. But Elise says she wants to deny her request, but she will do anything for Kento and the island, and for a better life for both of them. Back in their room, Kento says she doesn't have to do anything like that, and he will talk to Nanami, but she holds her face, says all she does is fight, and with this, she has an opportunity to do more. She says that Kento is doing enough already, and she will support him, no matter what. And in return, she also expects his support. Keeping his head on her lap, she says she will always be there for him in the future, and if he is tired, they can escape together. Kento wakes up in his bed, wondering when he fell asleep. He comes out of the dining room to find Elise already awake. He asks her why she is awake so early. She says that it's comfortable here, but also surprisingly hard to sleep. She has also heard new information from the senator, which is that today's plans are shifted to the afternoon, so all they have to do is wait and relax till then. They shouldn't waste this rare chance and ask him to go for a tour of the streets. They are the visitors there, and it wouldn't be strange if they went for a little sightseeing. He makes her promise not to do anything crazy. They move out on the streets. Elise has a jaw-dropping moment when she sees the city. He asks her if it feels different from seeing it on TV or the internet, to which she agrees. When a crowd comes walking towards them, Kento puts his arm around her to save her from getting bumped. He says the cities are crowded, but notices her being startled, and his arms are around her hand. Mortified, Kento removes his hand, seeing her embarrassed. He asks her to say something and asks if she needs to go to the restroom. She yells at him to stop talking nonsense, grabs his arm, and starts walking. They go inside a shopping mall, where she gets inside a trial room to fit on a new dress, while he waits for her outside the trial room. She asks him to look at her, covering her body with the curtain. Surprised, he asks where her dress is, and she removes the curtain to show her dress, tricking him into thinking that she was naked to see his funny reaction. She asks how it is, to which he replies that the dress looks amazing on her. It brings out the beauty within her, and she looks like a doll. She is thankful, but decides not to buy it. He asks her if anything is wrong with the dress or the shop, but their conversation is interrupted. All of a sudden, one of the escorts arrives, looking for them. He says they were looking for them the entire day, and they could have at least let them know that they were leaving. Kento says he did leave a note, but the escort says he could have called them. Elise calms them down, saying that now that they have found them, it is time for the meeting. They take them back to the hotel where Elise is asked to go inside a room to put on new clothes and some makeup before the interview. She goes inside to meet a woman. The woman introduces herself as Kinzen, her makeup artist. She asks how she would like her makeup, but Elise says she doesn't understand anything about it and leaves it on her. Kinzen goes on to admire her complexion, calling it amazing, and that her skin is like that of a teenager, and she is becoming envious of her. She also says her legs are also long compared to the models, which are perfect. She asks her if all the elves are so pretty, but an annoyed Elise apologizes to her and asks her to be a little quiet. The makeup artist is embarrassed and says she will stop talking, but Elise says she can continue to talk. Kinzen says she is done and is just giving it a little finishing touch by putting on a hairpin to keep her hair in place. But Elise suggests that she use her own hairpin, the one Kento made her, instead. Kinzen opposes that a simple one would be better, but Elise imposes on her to put on her own hairpin. The makeup artist asks Elise how she looks, as Elise looks at herself in the mirror and says she loves it and is thankful to her. Kinzen asks her if the hairpin holds a meaning to her. She remembers Kento's face and says it does, and it's precious to her. Kinzen asks Kento to move inside the room to see for himself. Kento is stunned by how pretty Elise looks in a suit and heels. Kinzen explains she used a suit to fit the formality of the event and a natural makeup style to bring out the beauty, giving her a mature vibe. Elise asks him how she looks. He says the suit fits her and she looks beautiful. Kinzen claims that she is an elf later, but a girl before. Elise goes to a room where she is asked to be seated, and the reporter will join her soon. An old polite lady comes inside the room and Elise greets her. She says it's an honor for her to meet such a beautiful lady. The reporter replies it's her pleasure to meet Elise and wishes to have a great interview together. The reporter says that she would have liked to know her more, but because of a lack of time, she would straight away get to the point and start the interview. She starts by asking if she was a monster hunter in her world. Elise says she was. The reporter continues that she would like to ask a hunter more questions about the dungeon, which is a topic everyone is fixated on, like what exactly a dungeon is. Like, share, and subscribe to find out in the next video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.